and us built what were called guiders. Probably in England, in America, maybe called go-karts. You know, you put wheels in a pram on a piece of wood and you able to guide yourself. So we had a group of guiders, and a neighbour was driving and accidentally hit Stephen. And Stephen was taken into hospital, and his injuries weren't great, you know, but the discovery of leukemia. So he died, and all of us were devastated. And we went to the funeral, and after the funeral, Paul McCartney's song "Yesterday" was in the charts. So I wrote a little piece about how I felt walking behind the coffin of 6-year-old Stephen Dignan. We were about 7 or 8 at the time, and my mother must have found it. I forgot more about it. My mother must have found it because about 10 years ago, this woman was giving me a lift home, and she says, "By the way, my granny's got a piece of you, like back in the 60s." I said, "What's that about?" She said, "About her nephew or niece or son, Stephen Dignan, was killed." But the first piece I ever wrote was for, there was a guy in our class called Joe McGee. Now I was from a working class. I mean, our toilet was out in the yard, we don't settle heating, right? Cry me a river, you know, right? But anyway, Joe McGee came from Fruit Hill Park. They owned their own house, they had central heating, they had a car, right? So I, at primary school, wrote a comic every week for Joe McGee, and he paid me. So I drew the comic and wrote the stories, and in every comic, Joe McGee had to be the hero. And of course, he was giving me sixpence each time. Right? What's it next week? I said, "Oh, you'll be conquering America next week, Joe."
Give me 7 pence.
So that was the first piece. The Stephen Dignan was the second piece, and then the third piece was probably that letter to the Irish News. But memoir, and I sent you some quotes on memoir yesterday. Did you get them?
But how did you choose the voices, the dead voices? Did you have to choose among people that had entered and left your life?
Yes.
And how did you do that? Was it all from one period of your life?
You see, I don't know this, but I have, although my wife wouldn't agree with me, but I have a pretty good memory, right? And even a piece of music can evoke so much, and I can dig down really deep and find things that are lying in the basement of my memory, and I didn't even know about. And it's quite exhilarating in a way. Sometimes it's worrying. I'll tell you why, but sometimes guilt arises when you suddenly remember something and how cruel you were with different people.
In the school.
Yeah. I mean, on that, I was at a funeral of an old friend, and a mate of mine called Robert Larkin, and Robert never drinks, never drank, but he took a glass of beer at this funeral, so his tongue became loose, and he turned around, and out of the blue, he says, "You know, you really hurt me one time." You talk about we're best of friends, you know, although you didn't visit me when I was in jail. He says, "We were walking around the phone. Robert was 2 years older than me, but he never got a girl, right? Whereas I had like flirting all the time." He says to me, we were walking around Falls Park one day, and I was concerned about. He was concerned about me, you know, getting a girl into trouble or something like that there. And I was telling you, you know, you need to be very careful. And you turned around and said to me, "Robert, shut up. An ounce of experience is worth a ton of opinion."
Wow.
Right? No, I don't remember that, but as soon as he said it, I knew I had said it.
Yeah.
And I felt so small that I had hurt him, and he had carried this for 40 years.
Yeah.
So, but on